Some spirits don't stay to haunt, they stay to protect. But even protectors have limits, and when they've been burned once, they won't burn again. Tonight, we walk a trail that was once beautiful, now quiet and watched. So get comfortable, settle in, and let's begin. Tonight's story takes us into the forests of West Virginia, to a trail once loved by hikers and campers alike, Ridge 6. Before the fire, before the silence, before the ranger who gave everything and came back to make sure no one forgets. Now they call it Dead Man's Trail. Joseph Mallory wasn't just a forest ranger, he was the ranger. 22 years on the job. Trusted, respected, loved. He led nature walks for kids, built trail markers by hand, made signs about birds, wildflowers, and which mushrooms were safe to eat. But his favorite place was Ridge 6, a narrow path that wrapped around the mountainside, overlooks with sweeping views, whispering trees in spring, and a beautiful arrangement of leaves in October. He was always up there, whistling a tune, clearing the path, or watching the sunrise. Locals said he belonged to that trail, and the trail to him. One July evening in 1983, a group of college campers lit a fire near the ridge. They thought it was out, but it wasn't. By 3 a.m., flames had crawled up the slope. The wind had shifted. Joseph was first to respond. He called for help, and then he went in, alone. He wasn't reckless. He was trying to stop it before it spread. But the campers didn't tell the truth fast enough. They misled the rangers about where the fire started, and Joseph walked straight into it. They say he was last seen near the overlook, surrounded by flames trying to stamp them out. Then came the screaming. One camper swore they saw him, silhouetted by fire, staring at them from across the blaze, mouth open as if yelling something they couldn't hear. By the time the sun rose, the flames were gone. What was left behind wasn't just ash, it was stillness, as if the forest itself had stopped to grieve. Ridge 6 didn't close, it just stopped welcoming people. The trees leaned a little closer, the air grew a little colder, and hikers began to understand they weren't supposed to be there anymore. Hikers said the forest just felt different, not dead, just watchful. Birds avoided the ridge. Campers said the air grew colder when they walked too far. One couple had their firewood vanish in the night, found stacked perfectly under a sign that read, "No fires beyond this point." The sign hadn't been there the day before. One hiker said he suddenly felt the hairs on his neck stand up, like someone was behind him, watching. He turned around, but no one was there. He said the trail felt different after that, as if it no longer wanted him to keep going. Locals don't just say it's haunted, they say it belongs to him now. Joseph hadn't moved on, and anyone who walks that trail walks through his woods. In 2022, a hiking YouTuber named Zach and two friends decided to film a haunted trail special. Zach was loud, cocky, funny at first. They started the hike just after midnight. Ridge 6 had spotty signal, but Zach had brought a high-gain hotspot. The stream was rough, glitchy, low-res, but it worked just enough to let his viewers watch it live. At first, Zach made jokes, mocking the warning sign, calling out for Ranger Joe like he was summoning a ghost at a sleepover, pretending to light a fire with a lighter just for views. His chat rolled with it until the mood shifted. 20 minutes in, the forest grew quiet. No crickets, no wind. One viewer left a comment, "Someone's behind you." Another posted a screenshot, a figure just beyond Zach, partially hidden behind a burned tree. Tall, still, wearing a wide-brimmed, old-school ranger's hat. Zach didn't notice, and he laughed it off, kept walking. Then, the sound cut out. Not the mic, the forest. His own footsteps didn't make a sound. But leaves crunched softly off trail, pacing him. Zach turned to talk to his friends, but they weren't there. No flashlights, no footsteps, no response. He shouted their names, once, twice, his voice echoing back, too sharp in the stillness. The trail behind him looked the same, but it just felt wrong. He thought it twisted just slightly more than it had before. The burned trees leaned inward. Burned trees? Where did those come from? The silence? It was thick. Too thick. Then came the first sound. Not from behind him, but from the woods to his right. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Crunching leaves he couldn't see moving. He turned, heart racing, light darting through the brush, but nothing was there. And then, deeper in the trees, a single beam of flashlight, a flickering flashlight. It looked like one of his friends had wandered off trail. He shouted again. No answer. Then he heard a voice.
Zach.
But it wasn't the right tone. It was off, like someone trying to sound like his friend. He ran toward the light, and it went out. At dawn, a ranger found Zach wandering along the service road just outside the forest boundary. He was barefoot, covered in pine needles and ash. He was shaking, arms wrapped around himself. His lips were cracked, his pupils blown wide, and he just kept whispering,
He's real. He's still out there. He followed me the whole way. They were behind me, and then they weren't.
His friends were found a few hours later, back at the trailhead, confused, exhausted, but unharmed. They said Zach had vanished behind them. They turned around, and he was just gone. No sound, no flashlight. They assumed he went ahead. They waited for hours, and he never showed. Zach hasn't spoke a full sentence since. He doesn't recognize his family. He doesn't respond to his name. He's been in a state-run psychiatric facility ever since. Quiet, twitchy, eyes fixed on a spot no one else can see. The footage was corrupted, except for the last 60 seconds. It shows Zach standing still on the trail, whispering. His body mic picks up his breathing, his words.
I didn't light it. It wasn't me, I'm sorry.
Then, the same low whistle heard earlier, and behind him, barely visible, was a man's silhouette. An old-school ranger's hat, charred sleeves, no visible face, just eyes reflecting the light like an animal. Then, Zach turns to run, and the camera cuts to black. They say Joseph Mallory walks the trail every night, still watching, still warning. Campers who respect the forest say they feel him nearby, a presence behind their shoulder, keeping them safe. But those who break the rules, they get turned around. They lose time, lose direction. Some come back barefoot. Others don't come back at all. He doesn't haunt, he protects. But even protectors have a limit, and if you play with fire on Dead Man's Trail, you might just meet the one who was burned by it. Thank you for joining me tonight. If your eyes haven't closed just yet, you're welcome to drift into another tale. Until next time, sleep well, and remember, some trails don't need a sign to tell you to turn back.